I started hearing voices. I didn't know what to do. I thought, okay, I've gone off the deep end. We hear of people who have been abducted, and some people have got really wonderful, amazing things to say, and some people have really terrible and horrible things to say about their experience and what they've gone through. But because my experience was negative, it drove me to find answers. And I was like, wait a second. So one of the reasons that they create that great big AI and they're collecting all this data from hundreds of thousands of people with implants is so that they know whether or not we're lying. They have that data to validate that. So as much as it sucks to be a person with an implant in it, we need it. We need it so that we're not a threat.
So they're here harvesting our own minerals to create these craft that are being deployed out in the oceans, and these beings that are also being deployed. This is them?
This is them. And each object is built with its unique design for its purpose.
So you've gathered this information from them.
Yeah.
Their teachings or what have you, and you're starting to replicate or build something based on their technology.
I have several different prototype designs that I'm sorry, I just got blocked. I'm not supposed to talk about the underwater stuff.
I listened to your podcast and have for the last 6 months and really enjoy it. Wasn't going to call, but I felt compelled to today after listening to one of your interviews. And so I've had several things happen over my life, but probably one of the most interesting ones was when I was younger, 13, I had some sort of visitation. The whole light and the voice telepathically, and it indicated that I would go through some events in my life that would want me to cause self-harm, but to not do it because we, plural, need you for the children. Anyway, there was other details in the message, but all that came to be true. And experienced a lot of loss and death and obstacles a few short years later, and was definitely depressed and thinking about at the tender age of 18, and could not because of that experience. Also, I've seen things and had other experiences, but just wanted to share. Thank you. Bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Today we have a very special guest here, a fellow Canadian, actually, which is not every day that we get a Canadian in the skiff. I'm joined by author, experiencer, Shawn Newbauer.
Thank you for having me on the show. I look forward to getting into this with you.
Yeah. So you approached me, and here's a wild thing. We were at Contact in the Desert, which is a convention that happens in Palm Springs, California, once a year, UFO convention. A lot of people there, 2,000 people. And you approached me, kind of pulled me aside and said, hey, I've got this story, and it's a little deep, it's a little complicated. And you started getting into the story with me, and I was completely enthralled because your story seems to fill a lot of the plot holes that we have in the sort of UFO sphere, with abductions, with crop circles, with technology, with culture of the beings themselves. And they are beings, they are extraterrestrials.
Yes.
And so according to you, and according to, I think, your book, MindHacked as well, is that this is one type of being that we're dealing with, and they have implanted you with a chip,
yes.
Much like the chips that Whitley Strieber talks about, or that Dr. Roger Leir, has taken a lot of time into looking into. And so through this chip, they communicate with you.
Yes.
And they talk to you they teach you things. They teach you physics, math, tech.
Astronomy, philosophy, sociology, physics.
Psychology, chemistry, really?
Psychology.
Yeah.
The foundations of the universe. And we have deep philosophical conversations about like the meaning of life, or what's the point, or the most objective way to think about something, or efficiencies in systems, or like it's really interesting stuff. It's not like the normal conversations that I hear a lot of people have, and I'm not like a huge deep diver into this. I haven't investigated the UFO phenomenon in depth.
Yeah.
I'm not a researcher. I'm an experiencer. I can remember sitting on my deck of my house talking with one of my friends about this way before this experience happened to me. And I was telling him, like, I know that mathematically there has to be life in the universe because
Sure.
it just makes sense for that to be. But if you hold the speed of light as a barrier in the universe, which we can't break right now with our current physics, then it's not possible for them to come here. Because, like, what are you going to pack a lunch and then travel for like 12 years and get to Earth to do what? To then like look around and just like learn about this species? Maybe, but it doesn't explain why they've been here for so long, right? But for me at the beginning, I wasn't a believer. It took this experience and the validation that I received from the first person perspective of this interaction to really convince me that it was real.
So you were in Mexico. This was 15 years ago when
Yes.
this happened. In Cancun, you were having a good time. You were out there with your girlfriend at the time, and you were just kind of celebrating. Take us through the initial experience and then how that led to the communications that you say you're having with these beings.
Yeah, sure. So we go to Mexico as Canadians. It's nice in the wintertime to get away from the snow.
Yeah.
Right? Like you want to get somewhere warm and get that sun on your skin and be delicious. So we're enjoying ourselves. Went down with my best friend, my new girlfriend. We're having a great time. And we're having a really good time in the sun and laughing so much that our cheeks hurt. And they decided that they wanted to go away from the resort and go to an outside restaurant. And so they decided to go to Bubblegum Fish Factory and in Cancun. And I'm not a huge fan of fish. Growing up in the north, fresh fish wasn't really easy to get. And so I don't really enjoy it. So when the food came, I got up from the table, excuse myself, and I went outside to get some air. I didn't have my wallet with me because I was just going out for just a brief moment while they ate. And then my intention was to come back inside. So I step outside the restaurant and I'm looking around. I'm like, I got a couple seconds to kill. Look across the street and I see these red and blue lights flashing. I'm like, oh,
Like a police car?
like a police car. And I'm like, I wonder what that is. And I go to take a couple steps and then the whole world went black, like the place before death, like it was gone. And then I come to, and I only have one memory in between the lights and walking down the street is I'm trying to take money out of a bank machine with my room key because that was all I had in my pocket. A few moments later, I come to and I'm walking down the sidewalk and I don't know where I am. I don't even know I'm in Mexico at this point. I don't know anything about anything. I'm just looking for help. So I look off to the left and I see a person. So I start walking towards this person. And as I'm walking towards this person, more and more of the universe is coming back into my ability to perceive it. And so as I'm growing more capacity of consciousness, I walk up to this guy and I can't talk. My mouth won't work. So I reach into my pocket and I pull out the only thing I have is my room key and I hand it to him. And he's like, oh, Senor, a long way. And he points down the road and I'm like, great. So I get on the road and I walk because I have no money for a cab. I can't even take a bus. It's like dark outside. And I don't know what's going on. So I start walking down the road and just as I'm getting back to the hotel, the sun is rising. And when I get into the room, I sit down, I pour myself a tub, my body aches like crazy. And I pour a bath and we had one of those really nice hotel rooms where you could see right on the ocean, watch the sun come up, got out of the bath and went to bed. I get up in the morning and my girlfriend's like, where the hell were you? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know where I went. Go down for breakfast and my friends are like, where the fuck were you? Like, we looked for you for hours. The balls on this guy to just get up from the table and leave. Like we called you, we searched around, we couldn't find you. Didn't think much of it. Like it was a really abnormal experience to have happened to me, but like I didn't have any marks on my body. It's not like somebody took a kidney. It was weird.
Did you suspect that you've been drugged?
Can we talk about how weird it is that I have to tell complete strangers, please,
Don't put my address on the internet. That feels like something that should already be covered. Like, hey, can you not sell where I sleep to complete strangers that I've never met? Well, apparently no, because there are companies called data brokers whose entire business is collecting your personal information and selling it. Your name, your phone number, your address, old addresses, people related to you. It's like LinkedIn, but for stalkers. And that's why I use Incogni. Incogni contacts data brokers for you and requests that your personal information be removed from their databases. So instead of me spending my weekends emailing 42 companies I've never heard of, Incogni does the work and keeps following up. And if you want to take back some control over your data, go to incogni.com/area52 and use code area52 to save 60% on an annual plan, because your privacy should not be declassified.
Yeah, I thought I had been drugged because
because the hotel room key thing at the ATM to me signals like, oh, you were with some people that were like drugging you, trying to get you to pull money out for them. But you had your hotel key and you didn't really know what was going on.
But all I had was my hotel key.
Exactly.
And I vaguely remember someone interfering with that interaction, maybe a security guard or something. I mean, I've gone on Google Earth and I went back to Mexico and I looked at the area and they have this one image of these two silver escalators that go up and these plants on the right-hand side.
Okay.
And at the top of those escalators, there's an ATM in an old mall, an outdoor mall.
And that's the one.
And that's the only image I have of my abduction. So it's a little bit lackluster. But the really interesting stuff is what happens next. So I go back home and my friends think it's hilarious that I missed a day. And
that you were potentially drugged, kidnapped.
It turns into a story, right? You go out, you're like, hey, why don't you tell everyone about that time you took off for a day in Mexico? And I'm like, that's not, and they're taking the piss out of me. But the really messed up thing is I started hearing voices and I didn't know what to do. I thought, okay, I've gone off the deep end, right? So I did what any normal person would do. I went to a psychiatrist and started talking to him. But the voices weren't doing what the psychiatrist thought voices should do, and definitely not what I thought voices should do, is they started taking the piss out of me. They started asking me, like, why would you drive your dog to the dog park to go for a walk? I can see in your fridge. I can see you eat meat. Why do you eat meat? Commanding me to go on the internet and look at the Canadian budget when it dropped. Asking me how often I pay my employees. How do I decide how much I pay them? All of these really weird questions to problems or questions to situations that I already knew the answer to. And I started challenging them, like trying to do math. Like, what's the square root of pi? Let me pump it in the calculator so that I can validate that you exist. But they started teaching me stuff. And
so before we get there, these voices, are they auditory? Are they audible voices, or are they, you know what I mean? Are these like actual male or female voices with English words?
Yes, but it comes with a picture. So they communicate in a language of memes, and so there's a visual aspect to this. And if I close my eyes, it can be inside my head, inside a space that opens up inside your head. Or I could look at a wall and it could be on a wall, and they've learned how to project it onto a wall.
So when you say memes, now obviously people are going to hear that and be like, oh, this guy's joking. Like, I mean, were they communicating memes? They're sending you memes? But what do you mean by memes?
It's like a visual language. So if you're trying to...
the memes is an analogy.
My Earth bridge to...
It's not actual,
no,
like the troll frog or anything. Like, it's not that type of meme.
No. It's none of our memes. Like, if someone is not very smart, there would be a pipe of light, and then the light would then be closed off to just a very small dribble. Because intelligence is light. Your brain is reflecting light all over the place. And so to imply that someone is stupid...
To say they're dim.
To say that they're dim, right? So that would be the type of meme, or a three-dimensional graph of how something would change. Like using a bell curve. to represent a leadership model,
Mm.
but then putting a little dip in it to say that the leader is stupid. So they're three-dimensional objects in space, but they're also three-dimensional objects in language, because a picture can be 1,000 words. And so they communicate these beautiful ideas in their virtual reality space. And when she was first teaching me,
You said she.
it was a female voice that first came to me and talking to me. And when I was learning their language, she would try to communicate a complicated word like maybe desire. And then when I got the word right, she would blink it twice. And she would do that multiple times until I learned how to read their language. And during that process, I learned a whole bunch of stuff. They started teaching me all kinds of really interesting things. I remember one time early on in the interaction, and they like to try to brainwash people. They love trying to convince people of stuff that's not real. That's one of their favorite things that they can do. And so they were trying to sell me, and they like to use religion as a lever to induce belief in people. And one of the problems with me, and I think one of the reasons that separates me from different people, is I'm a true atheist. Never believed in God. I don't believe in God. I don't believe in an afterlife. I don't believe in anything. I think the place before death is that space where you weren't born, and then when you die, you go there. And they tried to sell me multiple religions throughout my interaction. One of them being Hinduism, another one being Buddhism, and they tried multiple things, Christianity.
What do you mean they tried multiple things? Like this is
through visions.
okay.
So
and when do you get these?
It depends. Right now it happens all the time. I talk to them all the time.
What's all the time?
Like all the time.
Specifically?
Like anytime I want to.
Really?
Yeah.
Right now?
Sure.
Okay. Is there any way we can test this?
There is, but it takes a setup. I have an open call.
Can we ask you a question or something? Is it like channeling?
I mean, you could ask a question. I don't know if they would answer.
Okay.
Because I don't decide. They're their own entity. They decide if they're going to participate or not. But my girlfriend will interact with them sometimes because she's very open to all of this and accepting of all of this. She's been a great supporter in my life, and she's seen in real time the effects of this and seen the interactions and the electronic harassment. And so for her, it's very real, like it is to me. Like it's not a question of maybe. It's like, no, this is for sure happening.
But it's for sure a question of maybe to everyone listening.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I want to kind of jump over somehow.
Well,
you all, based on the information that you were given, you're also, not to jump too far ahead, but you were given instructions on how to build something?
Yeah. Well, I've not exactly instructions on how to build something. I've been taught. So through our conversations, there's an idea. I can't remember what it's called. When you get kidnapped and you get this familiar association with your abductor.
Yeah.
But that can go in two directions. And so a familiarity presented itself or became, through this familiarity, we would have conversations. We would have deep philosophical conversations. It would start with them taking the piss out of me about how dumb this leader is and how dumb that situation is, or how dumb it is for us to do XYZ. And then we would get into a philosophical or sociological conversation about it. And I would defend our systems and our methods, trying to explain how it works. And then through that, being in a room with someone who's really smart, I would learn because I would be wrong. And so then they would teach me stuff. Directly, they taught me lots of stuff as the experience went on, because it's been 15 years. And so it's been a journey. They didn't start off teaching me stuff. They started off just trying to get me to believe in a religion so that they could monitor me, make fun of me, They talked openly about like there's that movie where they have the award Zombie Killer of the Year, where the big piano like falls on somebody. Zombieland, yeah, and they kill somebody with the piano. They have a similar kind of thing, but not killing people, but like brainwashes. So they convince someone that they're talking to their dog, and that becomes a canned experience that they then send home, and everybody laughs. Or they'll convince.
Well, so they have humor.
Oh, they're some of the funniest people I've spent time with. Their ability to come up with a quick piss take or make fun of something or like a meme. Their memes are hilarious in real time. Like I have to stop myself in public from laughing out loud because we'll be having some great conversation about who knows what, and then I'll just like bust a gut laughing. And I've shared some with my girlfriend, and she thinks they're funny too.
Okay, so let's slow down here. This is a lot of information for everybody, and I'm sure you understand this.
Absolutely.
This is, the way that the audience and myself even are going to perceive this is one of two ways. Obviously, way number one is, holy shit, this guy's talking to aliens, and we're getting firsthand knowledge. And the second side of this coin is something else is at play.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's someone messing with you or some entity messing with you. And I don't mean entity in the extraterrestrial sense, but like CIA or like that type of stuff. They're holding an MKUltra trial today they're doing a congressional hearing on MKUltra right now as we speak. And there have been experiments done to people through the MKUltra program, which is in line with a lot of this stuff, which, trying to convince them of things. They even had, I remember they were trying to, when they were working with this magician, John Mulholland in the 50s, they were planning on how to sort of usurp or overthrow the Cuban government and Fidel Castro, and by undermining his power, by projecting like the Mother Mary in the sky. And there were all sorts of wild, fantastical things, but, leave it up to them to come up with these, cruel jokes. Has it ever crossed your mind that might be happening?
Absolutely. I've been open to any solution for the entire time that this has gone on. But like I went to see multiple psychiatrists.
You showed me the papers.
Yeah, they're like, there's nothing wrong with you. Like, you're a normal, balanced individual. But when it first started happening to me, I'm an atheist. I'm a scientist. I want to understand what's going on with me. I'm not into the woo at all. And so when it started happening, I took it from the frame that I was crazy. I attacked it like I was crazy. I thought I was crazy. And through this experience, I've gathered enough evidence objectively to support the fact that it's not.
And that's what drove you to go get psychiatric help and evaluations, which you've done multiple times.
Yeah.
You had 12 sessions with one doctor and then 3 sessions with another.
That's correct.
And they've all cleared you of any psychological trouble. They did say that you did deal with some traumatic event, and there was a concussion involved as well. I think I read. A car accident, yeah. But they said that, no, you're completely cleared of any... there's nothing wrong with you.
Yeah. So when it first started happening to me, I would have my stress would be squeezed at work, way over amplified. And I started having these like stomach problems. And that's what led me down this road, which is why I started trying to figure out what was wrong with me, because it was uncomfortable. And so I needed a motive to deal with it. And so I remember one time I'm driving home from work and I swerved in my car. Just a quick little move. There was a dog or something was on the road, and all of the stuff that I was going through waned. Like, it just was gone. And then half a second later, it was back. And I was like, wait a second. And that was the moment that I saw the first chink in the armor. Because it didn't make sense to me that it would just suddenly dip. So, okay, great. I'm gathering information. I'm taking my dog for a walk in the park. And I go underneath the bridge. And it attenuates. I come out from the bridge, it comes up. I go back under the bridge, it attenuates. Interesting. I go to the pool, randomly happen to go to the pool, dive down to the very bottom of the pool. The signal's almost gone. My stomach feels good. My head's not buzzing. Everything feels amazing. So I come back up. Very interesting. I go to my house. I go to the basement. I go to the four corners of my basement to check to see if it's coming from the side, because the concrete should block it. The concrete bridge was blocking it. The concrete should block it. So I go to the corners. Nothing. Underneath concrete works great. So I sell my house and I move into a condominium with multiple layers of concrete above me. And that move from my house into that building is what stopped all of the negative aspects of this. Because we hear of people who have been abducted, and some people have got really wonderful, amazing things to say. And some people have really terrible and horrible things to say about their experience and what they've gone through. But because my experience was negative, it drove me to find answers. And because I was able to isolate that it was coming from above, and I was also able to isolate that it was happening, that it was following me around, I could pump the brakes in the car. And after that swerve, I started messing around. So I would pump the brakes in the car, and the signal would go away for a second, and then it would go away for a second. And then after a while, that wouldn't work anymore. I'm laying at home at night, and I'm trying to sleep, and they're buzzing my head, and this is still back in the wooden house. And so I bought one of those EEG headbands. It's called a Muse. And I put it on my head while this is happening. And I have witnesses to witness all of this stuff that's going on. And the amplitude of the EEG is outside the level of what the machine can read. And not by like a little bit, by like 4 or 5 times what the machine is designed to read. So how does my skin, surface of my skin, get that charged? It doesn't make any sense. So something else has to be going on. And it's in alignment with the buzzing that's going on in my head and the suffering and the stuff that I'm going through at the time. So it becomes a linear thing. So then I learned that there's a signal interacting with me. I learned that it's interacting with my brain. I went to the hospital and I'm like, okay, like, let's see if there's something wrong with me. So I checked myself in. And they did blood tests. Like they did the whole battery blood. They did every blood test that you can find to do, and everything came back clean. They put me in a professional EEG machine, and I fell asleep. The signal went off. My stomach felt great, and I went to sleep. So I knew that something was interacting with me intelligently. They can turn it on. They can turn it off. They know that we're going to test for it. They don't want us to be able to find it.
That's something that I've heard from multiple abduction witnesses, where they would think about getting their implant removed, and they would, book a date with the doctor and say, okay, on Wednesday, and it's Monday. On Wednesday, I'm going to get this removed. Well, on Tuesday, they would have missing time. And then on Wednesday, there's nothing left to remove. And this happens with pregnancies as well, with ladies who report that they wanted to get an abortion from a ghost pregnancy. They shouldn't be pregnant. They're old, too old to be pregnant, or didn't have intercourse, and they're showing all the signs of pregnancy. And then when they call the doctor and take an appointment, they have missing time, and then it goes away. Mm-hmm. So that's not completely unheard of.
No. And throughout my experience, I'm going through all of this stuff, and I have a psychiatrist who I'm going to see, and I'm talking about all this stuff, and I'm telling him all of these anomalies. I have electronic harassment following me around. People are logging into my stuff, CIA level stuff.
Yeah, I've seen that. And for the audience at home, a lot of that is personal information, which we won't show. But there were several times where like your computer was logged into a friend's Facebook page, which you don't have access to. And then the timestamps didn't make sense. Like when you caught it, the timestamps were different. And you have receipts of all this. And you texted your friend, hey, did you log into my computer? And he was like, no, I had no idea what you're talking about. And so you have this evidence.
I have piles of it.
That there is something.
Yeah. I got MIT physics training data dumped into my computer on my D drive. I came home from work one day and my D drive was full of a little red. It was red. And I'm like, that's like, I was at work all day. What the hell? So I look and I take it all out and I made a copy of it and I started uploading it into the GPTs. And there's like hacking programs and in one of the files, they're all sequential. There's like 22,000 files in my D drive, and they're all sequential. They go up by two numbers, and they're copies of each other. So inside each file, there's two copies. And then, so I just started how do you go through 22,000 files? You can't. So I just started grabbing some and uploading them. And one of them, it said, this is MIT physics training data, and that you should not have this on your computer. And I was like, yeah, no kidding. I have pictures of people I've never met. Little
in your phone and
little pixies or little files called like alien lightning, all kinds of stuff that would be contextual when you have a frame, but just piles and piles of stuff. I have a picture I have a picture somewhere where I laid out all of my hard drives and all my computers and all my phones and all my stuff that's been hacked through cell phone providers, through countries. I changed like 5 or 6 different cell phone providers. I changed countries. I changed my home supplier. I deleted my Google accounts. I deleted all my social media accounts, remade them over and over and over and over again, trying to get rid of this. One time I went to the mall and I had the guy make me a burner phone, and I'm like, just put a name in, just put an address in, just do it. I don't even want to know the phone number. And it took him 3 days to break the phone. And I had no knowledge of what it was. So objectively, this is some random phone that belongs to someone who doesn't exist. Why would anyone penetrate it? It doesn't even make sense. The motive to penetrate that phone is zero, right? So the only way that there's a motive to penetrate that phone is through me and through my first person, because I didn't even know about it. So really, really interesting evidence
and you
to support the electronic harassment.
You brought this to the authorities.
Yeah, I did. I have 3 police files over 3 different times. And when I talked to the Mounties, because we're in Canada, the professional who came in who handles it, the last time I talked to somebody, he's like, I've been doing this for 25 years. I've never seen anything even close to what you have. And that was only one file. I only gave him like a third of the stuff because it was only the stuff relevant since the last 2 files. So there's a whole bunch of objective evidence to support my situation and what's going on. So something is for sure that can't be countered. That something is happening to me. Like something is definitely going on because I have all kinds of receipts.
Whether it's like an agency or these, extraterrestrials with a sense of humor. I want to talk a little bit more about, before we move on to these entities, because you have, for me, what's, and I'm sure for a lot of the listeners, what's really fun in all of this is that you do have like a clear, vivid picture of who these entities are, what the purpose is, where they're from, why they're here, like all the answers that all of us have been seeking in terms of extraterrestrial engagement. And you seem to have all these answers really neatly laid out, which I'm excited to get into because I'm a big fan of lore when it comes to this stuff. And a lot of people seem to provide these plot hole filling compartments of lore to explain everything. I had someone here, Eric Nansteel, who's he had his own theories about what happened to their planet and why they're here now. And then there's, somebody named Michael Horn who, spreads sort of the story of Billy Meyer and his contact reports. And everybody seems to have their own brand of this is actually what's going on. Mm-hmm. And so I'm really excited to hear yours. But before that,
yes,
can we talk about the prototype?
Sure.
So you've gathered this information from them.
Yeah.
Their teachings or what have you, and you're starting to replicate or build something based on their technology.
I have several different prototype designs that I'm currently working on putting into physical existence to then test and validate through multiple different versions or different ideas of their technology that really bridges the gap between where we're at and where they're at.
And what is that? What is that like? What bridges the gap?
One of them is their antenna, their ability to manipulate light down to the photon, so they can control a photon not only individually as a photon, the way the photon exists, but they can control it in its planar existence. So they can polarize it. So they can send out a Y-plane polarized single photon of any frequency of light that they want to, which is how they're able to disappear from radar, and they're able to disappear from sight, and they're able to disappear from whatever, because the surface of their ship has got all of these little tiny programmable scale antennas on it in 3 dimension that allow them to manipulate light in all of its form, so they can control its phase and its polarity. So our radar systems, which send the signal out and then ask for a reflection, they can control their reflections, like a controller controls its rebounds. Everything that comes into the thing gets absorbed, and then they can send out whatever they want to. And I think a lot of people understand that as cloaking. And the only way you can achieve cloaking is if you absorb all light, and then you control what comes out. And they've achieved that state. And that's how they're able to do a lot of the illusions that they like to do. Some stuff is real. Absolutely. Some stuff that they do is illusions. It's really easy if you can control. Imagine if you had cloaking and you wanted to fly into a mountain or make it look like you were going to fly into a mountain, it would be really easy, especially as a magician. You can appreciate that.
Sure.
Right? So you could create that illusion, and through sensor data and through all kinds of stuff, by just disappearing. And to anybody who wasn't aware that that was possible, that would look like magic.
That like the Tic Tac that, was it Fravor, Colonel Fravor, was it? Who the pilot saw this Tic Tac sort of appear and then reappear elsewhere. Like, how do we know that that's not 2 Tic Tacs simultaneously appearing and reappearing instead of just one? Is that kind of what you're saying?
Exactly. So they love to be trickster. They have a sense of humor. Their sense of humor is probably stronger than ours. They like to have fun and make fun of things and do things that are funny. And to them, dominating the government or having them all have imagine the president is calling the leader of China. I'm not sure if I don't know what his title is, but he's calling the leader of China, and they're talking about this false narrative that they've managed to create. So our highest power is now having this discussion about their brainwash, and they think that that's hilarious because we're not smart enough to figure out what's going on. And so they love to flex that higher level intelligence to each other as a validator to say, like, look at how smart we are. We do the same thing. We have that same similar culture where we like to associate or validate with each other our success. Like, we're really cool and that kid's not, is something that we see present itself all over the place. So it's very easy for us to see that as a behavioral path for another entity to evolve on another planet, because it's a very social thing to do.
So, okay, let's get into it. Where are they from? So
they left a star map, and
this is them telling you this, by the way. All this information that you're telling me,
they told me for sure,
and they're allowing you to talk about this somehow.
Now they're allowing me to talk about this. The reason that it's been 15 years is because for a long time they weren't allowing me to. Through my electronic harassment, they were blocking me from reaching out to anyone. They did all kinds of filtering on what information I was allowed to get out, which is why I opened this conversation at Contact in the Desert, because a first-person conversation can't be interfered with.
Mm-hmm.
But in our conversations, they told me where they're from, and they're not shy about any of this stuff. Once you know how their world works and how to read their language, their 3-dimensional language, everything is just out there for you to see and interpret. So, for example, the pyramids of Giza.
Well, before we get to the pyramids, where are they from? I want to start with their origin, because
that's the key.
Oh, okay.
That's the key. Is the pyramids of Giza were positioned on Earth at the center of all landmass. but also at the longitude or latitude, whatever it is, I can't remember, of the speed of light. The speed of light is a function of the meter. You cannot understand the speed of light or write it as a speed without the meter. The Egyptians very clearly understood what the meter was. And the meter is the distance around our planet divided by the amount of the distance light travels in a second. So the speed of light is encoded into the pyramids. And you can do a huge deep dive on how incredibly mathematically relevant the pyramids are. There's lots of people that do huge deep dives into it. So it's an intentional object, and it's a star map. And I think what a lot of people are missing is they're positioned on the ground to look like Orion's belt, but Orion's belt is backwards.
Yeah, it's kind of reflecting Orion's belt.
It's reflecting Orion's belt. But if you live in space and you're a creature in space, if you line up Orion's belt on top of those, so if you look from behind Orion's belt and you look at the planet, you see that the Pyramid of Giza is a star map that goes to their planet. And it's time locked. There's the one dimension that on the summer solstice at the rise of Leo, you can only see the what would it be, the fifth dimension of the pyramid, that little indent on that day. On that day, when everything is lined up, it's a star map, and the Queen's Chamber is a representation, a meme, if you will, of through the void to around a corner and down back to their planet. And so it's a whole star map of where they came from.
And what is their planet? Do we know? Do we know the name?
I don't know the name. I don't know how to reverse. I'm not an astronomer. I don't know how to go after that data to validate that, and or how to calculate the distances of what they are. But where they're from doesn't really matter because nobody lives there anymore. So finding that place would just be like finding fingerprints, right? It would be like finding evidence of someone existing before, but they'll just tell us way before we have a chance to ever go there because they're here. They're here. It doesn't make sense for them to be interacting with us unless they're here.
So why are they not home anymore? Why are they not at their planet?
So they told me, and this is just a natural progression of logic for any species. A species needs energy. We use energy. We use hydrocarbons. We use wind energy. We use dams and electromagnetics to generate a majority of what we use for power. But at a certain point, you run out of hydrocarbons and your technology advances and you figure out how to push two atoms together to create helium. You push two hydrogen atoms together to create helium. And you eventually, we're working on it right now, you discover fusion. But fusion isn't the be-all, end-all answer. It's just basically hydrocarbons on another scale, because every time you take hydrogen and you push it together, you never have hydrogen again. Now you have helium. So it's a non-renewable resource. So then the question gets floored, and we will have this question floored at some point in our journey. Where are we going to get the hydrogen from? Are we going to take it from the ocean? Are we going to lose a foot, 2 feet, 3 feet, 10 feet, and then go, hey, where are we going to get the hydrogen from? Maybe. Are we going to have the foresight to see? Who knows? But at some point, you're going to have to go and get hydrogen from somewhere. So then you start looking to space. And in space, planets, some really special planets called gas giants, have done the work for you. And so Jupiter if you use the Earth's ocean, which is an astronomical amount of volume, right? Like imagine the whole, all the water on the Earth as a unit, a single unit. Jupiter has 500,000 Earth oceans of liquid hydrogen on it. That is enough energy to last us. I asked Grok to do the math, and I think it's 1 × 10 to the 34th power years at our current energy rate, assuming a 50% burn rate on fusion, like if you can get 50% of the energy out of a fusion reaction, which is like astronomical. When you start looking at the universe as a spacefaring species, like the conversations I had, like the astronomy that they taught me, all the stars in the galaxy they're not all orbiting at the same speed. 60 to 70% of stars are in binary or trinary systems, which means that eventually they catch up to each other and then they get locked. And when they get locked, the planets, there's a TV show, Three-Body Problem. We haven't solved the three-body problem. There is no solution to the three-body problem. That show happens to be about aliens. Coincidence? Probably not. But so if the planets, if every star that gets locked into a binary or trinary system loses its planets, that means that planets, if you push the timeline far enough forward, like a spacefaring species would, planets are not a home that is sustainable. So if you're willing to leave your home and move your species to space, then you're going to go to where, like, why would you haul hydrogen somewhere arbitrarily and you would just go to the hydrogen? It makes way more sense. So when they were on their planet and they're looking out in the galaxy, they saw our system, and our system is very unique. It has 4 gas giants. Some have 1. We're now learning more and more about how to identify planets and how to, see what they are and what they're made of. And it's very early astronomy. But once you figure out that gas giants are the solution, they decided to move here. And as that being a linear progress of logic, they assumed, because when they got here, they found us, they didn't know that we were here. When they did their astronomy from however far away it was to here, they couldn't see us. Rewind the clock 25,000 years, 28,000 years, 15,000, however long that was, because it took them a long time to get here. We didn't have radios. Even if we did, they wouldn't have had time to get there, even traveling at the speed of light. So there's no way that they would have even known that we were here. So they came here for the gas giants, for a solution to their energy needs for millions of years. And so when they got here and they discovered us, they were like, wow, who are these little monkeys running around on this planet? Now we know that there's life in the universe. So they built the pyramid as a marker, not for us to understand, but for the other life that they predicted would come to our solar system because it's unique and it has 4 gas giants. So once you learn how to read their memes, and once you learn how they think and you understand their frame, a lot of the holes that you mentioned start to fill themselves in just by being the simplest and easiest and most logical answer. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so out of necessity to survive, they found us. They found this planet. They found the solar system. And now they come here, they discover us. What's the point of them doing what they're doing? Why don't they just move on? Why don't they just grab our water and get out of here? What do they get out of, quote unquote, messing with us?
So they're not here for our water. They're here for the hydrogen stores in Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, whatever. And they've been here for a long, long time. We can see evidence of them interacting with us all the way back to Aztec, them being the gods. It's all over the place. They showed us the summer solstice and the winter solstice so that we knew when to build crops, right? They came here and they saw that we were struggling to survive. They started doing some science on us and they figured out that, holy crap, these monkeys are really smart, but they don't have any tools. Well, why don't they have any tools? And when they got here, we had just ended an ice age. And ice ages have this really interesting aspect to them, like a sociology aspect that I think a lot of people don't really comprehend. So as the ice progresses down towards the equator, the amount of land mass that is habitable, that's above zero, decreases. And so all of the life on planet Earth has to compete to survive for the amount of vegetation that can grow in that tiny band. And so being aggressive, being strong, being dominant survives. That's the theory of evolution, right?
Sure.
That's Darwin's idea of how all life exists.
Yeah.
So if we accept that as a valid piece of information, we, throughout our history, get reset on this huge, massive intergalactic scale where our planet goes through these cycles. And we can go through the ice records and we can see that we go through these cycles of ice ages over and over and over again. And every time it washes out our ability to create tools, to create writing, to create all of this stuff. So they gave us these gifts. They gave us a little bump, a little push. Here you go.
Which was the solstice.
Which was the solstice. So we knew
or the information of the solstice. Yeah.
We knew when to plant crops.
Mm-hmm.
We knew when to do that. And they gave us the calendar of that through the Mayan calendar.
Right.
And so that Mayan calendar was reset in 2012 or whenever it was. And that was when our system goes through, is a full reset of the precession cycle, which is one of the 4 cycles in our ice age cycle. And the 4 combine to decide how deep the ice age is in a given time. So they came here and they saw us, but they knew how smart we were. And they did a whole bunch of tests on us, and they abducted us. And they were like, how smart? Like, we do that with monkeys. Can it learn sign language? Can it learn? We'll give it.
And that's the point of the chips?
No, we're getting to that.
Okay.
But they have those monkeys, and they'll give them a board, and it'll have 20 numbers on it, and they'll flash it for like a tenth of a second, and there'll be the 10.
The monkey's touching them all so quickly.
My brain is like, I can see 4 numbers maybe, and monkey's just like nothing. It's just a do.
We'll pull up that video here so people can see, but it is, it's astounding. I had no idea that they had this like eidetic memory, that they could just see something for a second and remember a sequence. Like, we can't do that.
Right?
I mean, maybe if we trained really hard, but they have it innately, it seems.
Yeah. So they did tests on us, and they had philosophical conversations with us, and they had all these things, and they're like, how are you this smart? Because they went through a different evolution than this. How are you this smart and you don't have tools and language? And so they gave us a little push. And so they've been here interacting with us because they're studying us. They know us better than we know ourselves. And the reason for that, the single motive for that, is very easy for us to relate to: security. They came here. This is their solar system. It's their energy. It's the way that they survive. It's their, we fight wars over oil and gas all the time. So they anticipate at one point, through giving us a boost, they knew that we were going to get into space. They knew that we were going to figure out the atom. They knew that we were going to do all this stuff. And so they are holding a position, which I 100% support. We are not, hardline, going to allow humans to fight us with interstellar energy, period. So we have to figure out a way to get along, to communicate, to not fight, to come up with a way that plenty works. Because energy creates plenty. You can talk, Elon Musk talks about robots and universal income and all of these things, and how when we have more robots than people, what are people going to do? Right? And so plenty is coming. We haven't done a lot of the sociology or the philosophy, and we don't celebrate those spaces.
Yeah. The soft sciences.
To really have a game plan of what that even looks like. Our leaderships, they don't even talk about it. They're not even like, oh, what are we going to do when the robots do all the jobs? They're just like, oh, we'll figure it out.
Are you saying when AI becomes sentient, or when we hit that max peak of AI where everything starts becoming public domain? And you're saying that they went through that already?
Well, yeah. I mean, we can see this with our AI, and their AI is better than our AI. But AI starts to take all the skills. So people, our smartest person, let's say they have 200 IQ, right? Eventually the AI will have 1,000 IQ, or it'll have 2,000 IQ or 10,000 IQ. And our intelligence becomes irrelevant. The difference between my intelligence and your intelligence, or Steve's intelligence, matters 0, because the delta is very small relative to the AI's 2,000 IQ. So all skills and all knowledge basically become deprecated. They become obsolete. And so in a state like that, where there's a real true state of plenty, like I can just want something and the computer will just make it for me. I don't even have to think about it.
And we don't have to understand how it works. We don't have to,
nothing. I just I want a new camera, and boom, I have a new camera. It changes the way that everything works, and energy becomes the single, by like a huge gap, bottleneck in your society. And so it needs to be protected. And we don't have a history. We can't share. We don't share stuff. Countries that don't have oil and gas are third world countries.
Yeah.
We're not like, oh, here you go, poor little country, have some oil and gas. We're like, no, pay the bill, right? So we haven't proven to ourselves, let alone someone else, that we can even be good neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
So they're here. The chips are in people to collect data to drive an algorithm, which is a AI representation of humanity or a vectored version of humanity in its
that
entirety.
Can be predicted, that can be
conversed with.
Yeah, conversed with, but also that can be used to predict our behavior and respond to perhaps some of our hostility or our shortcomings.
In
the chip that you have, by the way, we didn't talk about this before, but I do want to mention this. Is in your lip.
It is. It's in my lip. Yeah, you can see it with the flashlight.
And you've gotten it scanned multiple times.
Yeah.
We have MRI, we have X-ray.
Yeah.
There is clearly a physical object there. What was interesting is that the MRI that you brought showed like this giant gaping hole in your chin.
Yeah.
Which doesn't make any sense because clearly your chin's intact. It does not have a giant hole in it.
Yeah.
But the MRI somehow shows this big blotch.
MRIs are a magnetic resonance imaging machine. And so they use the magnetic spectrum to interact with light. And if you have a piece of metal in your face, it will induce a magnetic field. But that magnetic field from that object is static. So let's say
doesn't fluctuate.
I have a piece of a Tonka truck
Yeah.
stuck in my face from when I was a kid, right? That deflection would remain constant throughout the scan.
Sure.
But on my scan, the intensity of the magnetic field changes from image to image to image.
Like a
in
pulse?
Its magnitude. Difficult to say. I haven't been able to analyze it to that level of scrutiny.
Mm-hmm.
The invitation is open.
Yeah.
If somebody has the resources or the ability to do something like that, I'm totally open to external validation and sharing the data that I have. So I do want to find that out. But it shows, and while the scan is going on, they're taking the piss out of me of how useless this is, how they're going to interfere with the scan.
But that's your interpretation of it. That's your interpretation that they're taking the piss out of you?
No, they're literally talking to me while I'm getting an MRI done, talking about how they're screwing with the machine through the device that's implanted in my face.
You can't tell a doctor that.
No. I can barely tell you that.
Yeah.
I can barely tell the audience that.
Yeah.
It's difficult to...
It sounds insane.
It does.
Yeah.
But yet the image is there.
Yeah.
And
clearly.
And the size of the image is changing.
No, I saw
it.
So
how do you explain it?
Yeah, I don't know. You had a surgeon in Canada refuse to take it out.
That's correct.
And then are you actively pursuing them? Or are you looking into perhaps why that surgeon refused to do that? Or is there any...
Yeah, I mean, that's a kind of a personal thing, and it goes deep into some stuff that I don't necessarily want to talk about at this point. But I am open to getting it removed. I want ultimately to get it removed.
To study it and to have hard evidence.
To take it to the next level. But I've been keeping it in my face because you can't refuse its existence if it's still there.
Right. As soon as it's out, they can say, well, how do we know that was in your face?
Everybody will say, well, chain of custody. Well, the chain of custody has been where it's been implanted in my face the whole time.
So you're gathering all the information that you can while it's in your body.
Yeah.
Before you extract it and have sort of provenance of where that came from.
Yeah. My YouTube channel, I call it Maximal Truth because I'm trying to, and I've tried to throughout this entire experience, be as objective.
Just document everything.
As I possibly can from an objective perspective.
Yeah.
Where it isn't my opinion that it is this, it is that it makes the most sense if it is this.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to continue along that path. I would love support and help in that direction. People who have the ability to do tests, to validate stuff, who can check and do all of these things, because to have one person carry this alone is a big ask.
Is it magnetic?
No,
okay.
It is, but only as a reflection of its ability to absorb and emit light, which is on the gigahertz or millimeter spectrum, which happens so fast that normal electronics can't pick it up. You need a
You can't put a magnet to it; it won't stick.
It happens too fast, so it just comes across as neutral because it's oscillating way too fast.
Wild.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel it?
No.
It's so crazy. I've had a few people send me their X-rays as well, and it's a very tiny object, but it's in your lip, not in your jaw. Correct?
2.17 millimeters, and it's in the skin. It's in my lip. I think it's on this side. I don't remember. And I also have more evidence. There's 2 gray patches on my head where, and this is 100% speculation, me just trying to put the pieces together. But when I went outside the restaurant, I think from an invisible position behind me, 2 intersecting lasers overcharged my pons, which is part of my brain, and rendered me unconscious. And these
like
2,
some type of directed energy weapon?
Yeah, like little lasers that are designed to interact with the brain, to overstimulate it, to cause a full wash, reset of the brain, and I rendered me unconscious. It's the same technology as they use for crop circles, and they told me is a solution for curing brain cancer. So if you have multiple lasers where they intersect, like a wave on the ocean, if all the waves' amplitudes meet at the same spot, you'll get a great big wave.
Yeah.
If they meet in a way that cancels, you'll get no
nothing.
wave.
Yeah.
And you can do the same thing with light, but you have to be able to control the start point. So you have to be able to control the start point so that you can get the phase shift right.
Yeah.
Because you have to have the light amplify at the same spot.
Sure.
So that it creates a microwave in the case of crop circles. They use a microwave laser intersecting, and then it just goes and creates a pattern on the field.
Yeah.
And you can do the same thing for non-invasive surgery or non-invasive brain cancer. And this is how they are able to, they live longer than we do. They've done, obviously, their medical system. This thing hasn't been rejected by my body. People report being healed by them, all kinds of stuff. So we know that their level of medical understanding is far more advanced than us. And that's how they're able to stay alive longer. That's how they're able to cure cancer, is they can interfere with their body at the cellular level through light, non-invasively. And so they can just kill cancer cells in the brain without ever opening your brain.
That's very interesting. Do they, so these are people, these are like essentially they're extraterrestrial, obviously, but they're a physical person. They have male and females, I speculate.
Okay, so that's a complicated question. So they're absolutely...
Well, gender's a spectrum, all that stuff, but do they have like reproductive organs?
Yes, and they're biological entities. And the way that I know that they're biological entities is because they make mistakes. So they'll say something silly, they'll put themselves in a position where I can take the piss out of them, they take the piss out of me, we tease each other all the time. And a computer wouldn't make those kinds of mistakes. It wouldn't have those types of responses. And they absolutely have a filter on the conversation that they're having, and they can control it to be anything. They could make themselves sound like a female. They could make themselves sound like they could make themselves sound like the president. They can make themselves sound like George Clooney, anyone they want to, just like we can. And they can do it real time. So just because I'm hearing a female voice doesn't necessarily mean that it's a female that I'm talking to, because it could be the AI talking to me.
So you don't know?
I don't know. I can't validate that. But I do know that they make mistakes. And I do know that they've taught me all kinds of stuff about physics and light and astronomy and sociology and all of these things that I want to now share with the world, because it's not our science, it's their science.
But so they obviously don't want us to know about them. Like that was their main thing, right? For like so many years. And, we talked before the podcast and you explained to me that they do have some type of deal with the government that is real. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about, okay, so there's a meeting that happened between them.
So I disagree with the position that it's them that want secrecy. We have no evidence of that. In the Vatican, there's thousands of years of reports of them interacting with people.
Yeah.
There's pictures of them on cave walls. They built a pyramid on the planet.
Yeah.
They're not trying to hide from us. Truman, or whoever it was that talked to them first after World War II and all the noise and complication that comes across that whole rabbit hole that you can go down, and many people watching had gone down that rabbit hole, they made a deal with our people. Our people didn't want them to exist. They didn't think that we could handle it. And you got to remember the frame. Truman just came out of World War II. Eisenhower was a general in World War II. They both of them had PTSD. Truman dropped a bomb and vaporized 500,000 people. Imagine how that would affect your psyche, your ability to like be a person still after fighting the Nazis in Japan and all of that stuff that they went through. It was a really traumatizing time. And then, oh, by the way, there's also aliens, right? And they're like, the last thing we need after World War II is to have this now existential threat on our hands. We need time. We need time to change our systems. We need time to change our beliefs. We need time to do all kinds of stuff.
That makes sense to me.
And so they asked for time. Now, how long? I don't know. They're forthcoming with me, but they're not that forthcoming with me. And so we've changed our system. You used to, everything used to go through religion. Religion was on the coin. Religion was on in court. And now we're trying to separate religion from state. And it's been a slow process, because I think for a lot of people, the idea or the existence of aliens, because of the way that it's written, and I'm not religious at all. I have never read the Bible. I know nothing about any of this stuff. So it's just whatever I can see from the outside looking in. But a lot of that was very closely tied, because we came from Europe, and in Europe, the Catholic Church was, sistered up with all of the heads of state throughout the whole of Europe. And so
up until the mid 1600s.
Religion has been a key pillar of power on our planet for a very, very, very long time.
Oh, yeah.
And so I think they wanted to separate from that, and they wanted to give the public a chance to accept it through movies like E.T., through Independence Day, through all of these thought experiments that they put us through, so that when they do say it, like I think they're going to soon, when they do say it, people are like, oh yeah. Like now, most people don't care.
No, they're sort of, there's a lot of apathy and sort of, okay. So they have this deal with the government. They are, despite everything, are keeping a secret. They're not showing themselves overtly. Why would they allow this? This seems like it kind of undermines what they're doing. Like, I mean, if you spend so many resources on chipping, tracking, data collecting, all of this kind of hinges on secrecy. If there's no secrecy, or if we start understanding exactly what their motive is, or where they're from, or how their technology works, I mean, to me, that kind of undermines their security. It creates a flaw in their system that we can now exploit. Why would they allow you to talk about that so openly? That boggles my mind. Like I feel like this is counterintuitive. If they're a very highly intelligent species, this wouldn't happen.
Well, they didn't want me to, and they blocked me from doing this for a very long time. They filtered my
what's changed?
Communication. They filtered all of my things. Well, the government is now disclosing.
So you think it's because of the government disclosing that they are
part of it?
Have they told you so?
Yeah, we have discussions about it all the time.
About disclosure?
Mm-hmm.
And what's their thoughts on disclosure?
It's not their idea. They haven't. I still disagree with the frame that they haven't been out there publicly. There are thousands and thousands and thousands of witnesses. Our teams, the CIA, the KGB, have created a stigma to dismiss them, so that most people have the frame that they aren't presenting themselves. They're not showing up on Times Square.
Yeah, the evidence is
interacting with people like, hi.
The evidence is mainly anecdotal.
Mm-hmm.
Mainly. How do we, you know what I mean? I'm sure there's many ways that we can transcend the anecdotal stuff instantly through communication.
Mm-hmm.
Whether that's breaking a formula that we've been trying to break, something perhaps that maybe you're working on.
Yeah.
But they could do any of that within a split second.
Yes.
Why don't they?
Because they have a deal.
With a
So
deal
they're
with
not
who?
doing
With the
it
government?
With the governments of our planet.
Okay.
They're giving us. I think a lot of people take it as a disrespect, but it's actually inverted from that. They're giving us a huge amount of respect because our leadership has made the decision that they don't want people to know. And so they're honoring that to a certain degree, but only to a certain degree. They're only going to give us as much as they decide they're going to give us. And so they have interactions and they test us. There's a moment in the 3-Body Problem where he's on the phone with aliens and he's reading a story and he's explaining lying. And at the moment that he says, I'm a liar, and the aliens are like, you lie? And then they stop talking. So as soon as you validate that you lie, how can they know that what we're saying is the truth? So one of the reasons that they create that great big AI and they're collecting all of this data from hundreds of thousands of people with implants is so that they know whether or not we're lying. They have that data to validate that. So as much as it sucks to be a person with an implant in it, we need it. We need it so that we're not a threat. They need that data so that they can ask the AI what the truth is. Because if they go to the government, and we know that
they're going to get lied to,
right? Like there isn't a single honest
the data
politician
collection
out
stuff. No, yeah, the data collection stuff is really interesting to me because I do feel like after all is said and done, and there are no jobs, and there's nothing left to do. Like we figured it out. Once we really figured it out, and we can, just like the holodeck, or just like the little thing that makes food in Star Trek, we can do all of that eventually. What's left? What is the commodity then? If it's not gold, and if it isn't money, and if it isn't water, like it becomes information, data, and we're seeing that now. Mm-hmm. Like there is a study recently that I looked at, which the number, I forget what the number was, but essentially, I think this was Jeff Bezos who's talking about this, if I'm not mistaken. But he voiced concerns that we didn't have enough clean water to feed the AI servers, that like the cooling systems of the AI, and that we're going to essentially use our consumable water as priority to feed these servers rather than to feed people who are dying of dehydration.
As a validation to the value of information.
Exactly.
Because it becomes a higher priority.
It seems like that. We're prioritizing cooling down these servers rather than giving people water who need it. Mm-hmm. And so if you fast forward that, it becomes a very lucrative, valuable, and essential commodity eventually, is this data collection.
And that very point is the reason why they interact with our nuclear stuff, is because they look at us and they're way more advanced than us, right? They live in that society that you're describing. So for them to see us, they live in a state of plenty. How could you make the decision to have people that are like you, that don't have clean water? What's wrong with your brain or your society or your sociology where that's acceptable to you? Where you can be okay with that and go out for dinner with your friends.
Just the reason they took our toys away.
While there's people on the other side of the planet or somewhere else that have nothing. Yeah. They're living in the dirt. If that's your acceptable behavior.
Yeah, if that's your compass.
Then you're not going to be our neighbor, because you're not going to do that to us, right? We needed to be violent. Violence is in our DNA. It's a function of the Ice Age cycle. All of us, we have to fight. We have to learn to fight. It's a function of survival. The strongest survives, right? Survival of the fittest. And we haven't turned the camera, or we haven't turned it back on ourselves to start learning about what should we do? How should we behave? What is an objective way to be the best human? What's the most objective way to be the best citizen of the universe?
Right.
Right? So they need, like, it's really a difficult situation, but they're giving us a lot of respect because they're listening to, even though the leader's decision to wait, maybe not, maybe was, maybe wasn't. I don't have the information that they had at the time. I can see reflections of it. I can see how they would make a decision like that. They didn't agree with that decision. They don't think that that's a smart decision, but the leaders made the decision. They wanted a certain amount of time, so they gave it to them. And they're respecting it to a certain degree within the confines of that deal. And they break the deal just as much as we break the deal. And so they're communicating with our people to say, like, we know what's going on, right? And all of these things that happen are conversations that they're having with the deep state, with the powers that be, with the people who are making decisions at the highest level about this, that we're not even allowed to know it exists, which to them also seems like completely upside down. And to me personally, it's like insane that we have creatures from another world that have come here and have been here for so long. The data is irrefutable, and we're not allowed to know about them. Like, that just doesn't even make any sense to me. Like, how would you even accept that as like an acceptable frame? Like, I can't find the data to make that make sense. Now, I don't have all the data. I'm not pretending to be like the person who knows everything, but
yeah, initially I read a document somewhere which is really interesting, and it was proposing that the reason we didn't want to divulge the extraterrestrial sort of their existence to the public is because their utopian society was essentially built in a communist sort of way, where everything's divided up equally.
Yeah. And
everyone has sort of equal share of everything. And that was a huge threat to us in the 40s and 50s, communism.
Absolutely.
We wanted to shun the idea of communism away from the general Western public, because if they started wanting communism, just like Russia had it, or China, or Germany at the time, then the capitalist society that the United States was trying to build would collapse.
Yeah.
And so I thought it was interesting as a proposed reason why there was no disclosure in the 50s was, well, we're not afraid that you won't understand aliens. We're afraid that you'll want communism.
Yeah.
Which I thought was interesting.
And they're absolutely fighting. I mean, we can see it. They do it out in the open for all of us to see. They're fighting. There's a big struggle between which leadership model is the best model. And like, they have this idea that there's only two potential leadership models in the universe, and there couldn't be a better one. And both of them fail. I've had this philosophical conversation with them endless times. It doesn't matter.
So what's the one that works?
You're not going to have a capitalist society because there's nothing to capitalize on. Like, when the computer does all this, what am I going to take from you?
Yeah, it's going to collapse.
Well, the idea of money comes way back from when we didn't really have, we were just starting to learn how to trade. And okay, I make hammers and you have cows. Well, I'm not going to give you my whole hammer for a cow because then, you're getting ripped off. But my cow isn't worth enough for the milk. So then you're getting ripped off. So how do we divide this up so that it works? And money intrinsically is supposed to represent work. That's what it was invented for. It doesn't represent work anymore. I can sit here while I'm sitting here. My trading is making me money. I'm not doing any work to earn that money. And so we figured out a way to manipulate and exploit that idea, because that's what people do, is exploit stuff. So the whole idea of capitalism is already starting to collapse. I mean, we can see them printing money, and the amount of money that they have to print. I don't think the U.S. can even recover from the debt that it has. So, I mean, mathematically,
no, it's
some
impossible.
Point, it has to fail. So it's not even really a position that they can even hold.
Yeah, I remember watching Zeitgeist when that came out.
But how do you, as the leader of the planet, say that you're driving a ship that's sinking? Like, you can't. It's not even a position that they can even take.
So tell me about, I want to learn, I want to hear less about us, because I'm bored with us.
Fair enough.
I've heard enough about us. We hear it in the news cycle. Something we don't hear about is them. What do they look like?
I have no idea.
So what did they tell you they look like?
They tell me they have a filter on their virtual reality space that prevents them from showing me what they look like.
There's so many directions we can go here. Let's go to the virtual reality space. This is something that I thought was really fascinating when you talked to me about it, and how they sort of hijack our neural pathways to create these virtual simulations in our mind, which then lead us to think we're talking to Pleiadians or Mantis people or tall grays or whatever it is. What is that mechanism? And can you explain that maybe in like a deeper way that people can understand?
Absolutely. So it's a wireless computer brain interface that creates what we call manifolds, which are thought processes. So a neuron will fire, and when it gets to the end of its axion, there will either be enough charge to tell the next neuron to fire or multiple neurons. And so they create this chain or this sequence of firing that we call manifolds. And so everything that you go through, the words that I'm speaking, the vision that I'm going through, all of it creates manifolds. And there's all kinds of research that we're doing right now all around the world. They're recording dreams. They're doing studies in mice. They're doing all kinds of stuff to validate that this is a real, true thing. And so through these manifolds and a computer brain interface, you can read the manifold to understand what's going on inside a person's brain as they perceive it. And you can induce those same things. And through that interface, much like a TV screen or something else, they've then bridged that gap. So that becomes a method, how to get a hold of the brain. And then they use that method to then spool up a virtual space where you can then interact in that space.
So in a more simplified version, when you think about something, there is a certain pattern that you can sort of copy paste in your neural pathways. Mm-hmm. And so if you have a way of injecting that paste back, changing something and back into the brain, then you can create a simulated reality, because all of this is simulated. Like me doing this isn't happening over here. It's all happening in here.
That's right.
And so what you're saying is that the data that they're collecting, they're using against us, so to speak, to induce these hallucinations.
Against us, with us. Some people it's against, some people it's with, and it's a broad spectrum of stuff so that they can diversify their.
But that's essentially it.
But yes, that's exactly what's happening. Is they're leveraging this understanding, this technology, to interact with people in different formats. So some people can see stuff, some people hear stuff, some people can, but like tasting things, like I'll taste ice cream. They can make me taste ice cream. They can.
What kind of ice cream?
Well, whatever kind I've eaten before, but it has to be something that I've done before. So they can only recreate images that I've given to the computer.
That you fed, yeah.
And the more times I do something, the greater the resolution. So each time the model learns and it trains itself to a sharper state. So like when I first started learning, she would show me an image and then she would blink it twice, but we didn't quite have audio figured out yet because she was training the AI how to learn audio. And so then when I had audio, then I could hear her. And then once we had audio, then the pictures were better. And then they became color pictures. And then I was able to just do it in my eye and inside my head instead of looking at the wall. And so there was this huge progression. And I literally watched them train the AI on my brain and watched it get better at the things that it did to interact with me. And so through that process, being the scientist, being the curious engineering brain that I have, I needed to know how, why, who, what, where, when, how, why. I wanted to define all of the parameters that I could get about this interaction. And so I started learning. And the more I learned, the better questions I could ask. And the better questions I could ask, the more stuff I could learn. And so it was basically this rebounding of information. And I just kept learning and learning and learning and learning. And now I've gotten it to the state where I'm literally building a company right now to create a wireless brain interface to go after this. And my first market is going to be digital sleep, because they can help you go to sleep, or they can help you wake up, and they can change the heartbeat or the theta frequency inside the brain. And so imagine if you could just decide you wanted to go to sleep for an hour and then wake up and feel refreshed. And so you could decide the state that you exist in.
That's crazy. So you're using the teachings that they're giving you to sort of patent stuff, to create stuff, and to go to market with a product or a yeah.
So I'm not capturing any of this stuff. I'm not getting patents. I'm not trying to leverage it for my own benefit. I want to improve the human condition. And I believe that all of the information that I've been given should be shared with everyone. If they're communist, if they're capitalist, if they're poor, if they're rich, doesn't matter. Everyone should have the same opportunities. That's what we fundamentally believe in our society, is that everyone should have an equal opportunity. So I think that everyone should have an equal opportunity. Am I going to build a company so that I can collect more resources so that I can move it to the next level? Absolutely. Because through that process, now instead of just going after digital sleep, I can make it phone calls. I can make it virtual interactions inside your head. I can make it ice cream. I can make help people curb addictions and other things that they go through just by breaking that process, by giving it a little stutter shot, like a little bit of a brain excitement, which will block those neuron pathways from happening. And if you can block those sequences from happening, you can block the induction that it creates.
What makes this different from like Neuralink?
Neuralink is using a encephalocelogram or whatever, the EEG. I don't know how to pronounce it. I'm not a medical professional by any extent. I'm just a victim of an interesting interaction. But they use an EEG, which is basically surface voltage, which produces a huge convolutional layer because they know the surface voltage of the skin and they can read it. And they've got these little electrodes that go inside your brain, and they're able to pick up a better resolution because they're inside the brain, but it's still just a voltage signal, and they're not collecting the proper data. And so I've done a lot of research into this, and they struggle with getting resolution through the brain. And I've figured out a way to bridge that gap. And that's what I'm going after. And it's by understanding phase, polarity, and creating and manipulation of light through this new antenna that I'm building a prototype for.
What does this prototype look like? Does this live in your brain? What is this?
It's just nanotechnology. It's super small and scalable to whatever size you want it to be. And
is that the point? Do you put it on your brain, or do you just wear it on your skin? Or
no, I don't think that. I know that for me, having this thing inside of me where I can't control it was very invasive to my life. So I would never recommend getting one injected. I would never create a company that has implants in people. But there's no reason why I couldn't put a sensor in a necklace, or I couldn't put a sensor in a pair of glasses, or in a ring, or in a little hair thing, or a headband, or whatever you want to do with it. As the technology gets better and scales, we'll be able to make it smaller, make it more efficient, make it do more, and do all kinds of stuff, and make it more comfortable. Maybe it's an earring. Maybe it's an earpiece that goes in your ear, right? So that you can collect all of the data that you're hearing. So you can feed that into an AI algorithm. So it's collecting real-time data on you, so that, you know, when your wife says, I told you to take the trash out, you're like, no, you didn't. And you can like play it back for her, like in Black Mirror.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. So it gives us the ability to capture real-time data and then use that data live. Like, we're all going to want it. We're all going to want all this data. We're all going to want this.
But again, that sounds like a lot of the sort of AI companions that are out there currently. I know we have a sponsor on this channel, Plod, which is like an AI note taker, but they have a necklace version of it where you can just wear and give it AI. So what's the difference between that?
It's very much like that, and it would encompass a lot of that technology, and it would be interfacing with your brain.
Interfacing, and how so?
Through these light manifolds.
Through the light manifolds.
Yeah. Through these, your neuron is Boolean. It's either firing or it's not firing. So by inducing a firing of the neuron, I can start a chain reaction, and then 4 neurons down, I can fire it again, and I can fire it again.
Right, so you can shortcut memory.
And so I can keep that manifold going through the brain, and so I can create that space, that chocolate ice cream in your head, so that you can taste chocolate ice cream even though you're eating a cracker.
Right. That feels very MKUltra.
Mm-hmm.
It does. Do you not think that the government already has access to this type of technology?
The government has access to lots of stuff that they don't tell us about. They're not even trying to keep the fact that there's secrets secret from us. So if there's secrets, it's not are there secrets, it's what are the secrets?
But this stuff here, this sounds like, prime, because if you're the government and anyone comes up with stuff like this, obviously this is just taken off the market instantly and buried deep. And or it's already being created, or it is created and you're just reinventing something that they've already invented 30 years ago, that they're using actively. You hear about directed energy, but you hear about also the, what is it? The Havana syndrome and whatnot. There are ways to manipulate the human mind from a distance, I believe.
100%.
So again, this brings up the question, what makes you so sure that what you're interacting with isn't some strange MKUltra offshoot?
The conversations that I've had are too philosophical. They're too objective. They're ideas and perspectives that we don't have.
It's non-human.
They're different. Like their very beliefs are different than ours. They're not the same. They don't believe in the same things that we do intrinsically. And I have tried, and I've had endless arguments about protecting the weak. A female human is designed to carry around a baby, which is basically useless for 4 years. We, as humans, have to have the programming or the neurology in order to accept that as a fact, right? Alligators don't do that. Alligators have little alligators, they bury them in a hole, and then they leave. And if the alligators don't survive, too bad, so sad. And their culture or their world or their biology is more tuned to that sort of model where, like, if you can't cut it, too bad, right? And so they're very cutthroat in some ways relative to that sort of stuff. So their intrinsic philosophies are very much different than ours.
They sound like the Borg. Star Trek?
I'm aware, yeah.
Yeah, where they're like half, cyborgs, half human, half machine or whatever, where everything's run on optimization and logic. Would you say that that's kind of how they operate, where everything needs to be optimal and logical, but they also have a sense of humor?
I think that they're very much like the Borg in the way that we're going to be the Borg, and any creature that works with an AI and a computer. The AI algorithm is maximally tuning for efficiency no matter what it does.
Yeah, it's min-maxing all day.
If you ask it to write an email for you, it's creating the maximum, the best. It wants to get the biggest reward it can for completing that task.
Yeah, or at least try.
And so when your AI is like, we're just like, I'm older, getting older in my life, and AI hasn't been here my whole life. But I like to think about what it would be like if it was maximized and I was born into that state. I wouldn't know any different, right? And so maximizing everything just becomes normal. Like, the things that we do every day, right? You get out of bed, you have breakfast, you say hi to your wife, you do all the things. So it just becomes an intrinsic part of their life, much like we can conceptualize the Borg would be. So yeah, they're very much like that. They like to fine tune and maximize everything and everything that they do. There's a whistleblower on 4chan who talked about the underground
the mobile construction unit.
The mobile construction units that they have in the trenches. And they have them in the trenches so that we can't get there, so that they can have a presence on Earth.
And that's real?
Yeah. I believe that's real, yeah. And so they leverage... Sorry, I just got blocked. I'm not supposed to talk about the underwater stuff.
Interesting.
They don't want that on air.
But the MCU, the mobile construction unit, that type of stuff?
I'm not supposed to talk about USOs.
Well, I mean, too bad.
Yeah, sorry. So they can do that. They can just wash my brain. And so they just randomly fire neurons, and then you'll lose your train of thought. And they'll just do that to me from time to time.
Well, let's push back.
Yeah.
So
sorry about that. I don't know where we left off or where we need to go. I've completely lost.
Well, I'll bring you back on track.
Okay.
In the trenches, there is talk of, this mobile construction unit, these places in the oceans that harbor these giant underwater craft. Would you say, through your experience with interacting with these beings, that they do have a presence undersea?
They have to have a presence that's close enough to account for the time delay, because my chip is talking to a satellite, which is then relaying information somewhere within the distance of the time constraints. And so the speed of light becomes a circumference for the distance away that they can be. They have to be acting live. In order to have a live conversation, the information has to travel fast enough.
Okay.
Right? So they have to have a presence here on Earth somewhere.
And so the idea of them having this self-replicating von Neumann probe that's living in the ocean, that's harvesting our own minerals to create these craft that are being deployed out in the oceans, and these beings that are also being deployed, this is them?
This is them. And each object is built with its unique design for its purpose.
Right.
Because everything is printed. They'll say, I want a coffee cup that will hold 26.72 ounces. And it will make one that's for that project. I want it to be made for someone with 6 fingers. And then it'll just be made, so they can just make it to do whatever they want it to do. And they know that science commands repeatable evidence.
Mm-hmm.
Like, one of our strongest pillars in science is you have to have repeatable evidence. So if every version of a object is different, it undermines credibility and helps the CIA, helps the government achieve their agenda of secrecy.
Right. So all these different beings, the Pleiadian, the Plagiaran, the Mantids, the Greys, these are all just essentially psyops from one single alien entity.
Could be, yeah. It makes the most sense. In order for all of that to
be
true,
how do you explain the Greys then, like the physical Greys that, let's take the 4chan whistleblower, for example. And again, I hold him in medium conviction. I think I'm over 50% at this point, but that, they've come across these craft that had these bodies on board, which were of the sort of gray variety.
Mm-hmm.
What are those? Are those, because we hear about the drones, we hear about them being biological sort of robots. Is that the case?
I think everything is intentional and put there for its purpose. And if you think about it from a biological perspective, if our biology interacted with their biology, it would be catastrophic for everyone. When the conquistadors went to South America way back in the day, they almost decimated the entire civilization through smallpox, I think it was. So for us to be arrogant enough to think that an actual biology is here interacting with us, they might be able to deal with ours, but for us to deal with their pathogens would be too much to ask. So I think that a lot of the biological entities, I think they're biological. I really do. I think they're controlled remotely through the AI. They can create through nanotechnology. They can control a whole body. I know they can turn muscles on and off. They can basically, if in 3-body problem, they had those crowns, they're like, here's a gift. If I had one of those on my body, I'm pretty sure they could take over my whole body. So if they could take over my whole body, it's perfectly reasonable for us to assume that they could have a biological robot interacting with people. And now that I can 3D print everything that I need, I can make that biological robot look like anything I want it to look like. It could look like a tiny spider. It could look like a large object. It could be a giant. It could be anything. A Medusa. It could be a Minotaur. It could be, and now all of these stories, maybe they weren't stories.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe those people actually saw that stuff and it was unbelievable, but maybe, there was something else going on. And it just opens up the possibility to questions, because through my process of learning computers and computer science and them teaching me all of this stuff, once you have a method for something, you can apply it to anything. Like once I can get a hold of something like printing biology, now I can print any biology, right? I can scale it to any set of parameters that I can imagine. So they can do anything they want, both in the biological space, in the material space, and in the psychological or the conscious space.
So that is them sort of just messing with us, like these crash retrievals and all that stuff. Is that just what is that? Is that an offshoot of a mistake that they made, or is that intentional? Because you hear about, both sides.
I think it's a combination of things. I think it's them adhering to their end of the deal that our side needed to make to satisfy their primitive ideas of what society is and stuff. And so they have freedom to do stuff through this deal. So I think they like to play with that a lot. But I think a lot of the crashes are gifts and or red herrings. So they'll like put a joystick in it just to watch what happens, because the whole ship is conscious of it's basically like putting a chip under the table, right? They can hear everything, they can see everything, they know everything that's going on.
Right.
So when the scientists are studying it, they can make fun of them because they don't know stuff. So it also satisfies, and I don't know the deal, I was never given it, but I can assume, and in my assumptions, I will say that probably those gifts were part of it. And we see a standard distribution of those gifts. Russia gets them, China gets them. We know Italy got one. We know, or we suspect that the Nazis had one. And so it's plausible to assume, or reasonable to assume, that all the countries have them. We hear people like Jake Barber and all the other, they race out into the ocean to capture these things. And there's like a big race to get them to then bring them back and reverse engineer their technology. Well, that wasn't part of the deal, reverse engineering the technology. The deal was so you'd have 100 years to tell your people that we exist. So what are you guys doing reverse engineering stuff? That's a threat, right? So then throwing a red herring in, putting a joystick in it, or putting some other pseudoscience in it, throws them off the path. It gives them a new pathway to go down, but not necessarily
like
one.
We reneged on the deal.
But not completely, because they have a deeper understanding of society than us. They can see through their data collection humanity. They can see us.
Right.
And so just because the leader says something silly in a given moment, they don't necessarily carry that with the same weight as they did in Three Body Problem when the guy's on the phone. He's like, oh, we lie. Well, that wouldn't be enough because they have the data to support the truth. And so the data collection becomes the validator, or it becomes this argument for us. It's in our best interests for them to have that data so that we can't make mistakes like that. So that when we do capture their stuff and try and capture the things and try and create these traps for them, and we capture their things, their rovers and their biologics, when we reverse engineer it, we're not really hurting ourselves as much as we could be, because they absolutely dominate us. They traveled from another star. Our furthest object is like a toy. The Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 compared to today's technology is a joke.
Yeah.
So our technology hasn't even really left the solar system. I mean, it has, if you want to classify Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 as leaving our technology leaving our solar system, and technically it is, but
it's still pretty primitive.
It's pretty primitive stuff.
So, okay, let's get into a little bit of the sciences, because you told me something really interesting as well on how they discovered the quantum field versus how we discovered the quantum field, and how we've gotten it wrong and they've gotten it right. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I thought that was really interesting.
Sure. So one of them, we were talking about quantum, and I was like, man, this chip is so small. How is it able to do so much stuff? Was the frame that we were having the conversation under. And I was trying to understand it, and this was early on in the interaction. And he said, Shawn, think of a little robot that makes, and we didn't even have Optimus at this point. Think of a little robot that builds a little tiny machine shop. And that little tiny machine shop builds a little tiny robot that builds a little tiny machine shop that builds, and they scaled it all the way down until matter broke. And then down at that scale, at the nanoscale, they started doing physics experiments. They're not reflecting or refracting light in a way to look down at that scale. They're actually operating at that scale with a little teeny camera that they built at that scale so that they can see what stuff looks like down there. And they can measure the reactions, and they can see, is there one atom? Is there two atoms? What is the electron shell of an atom look like, or a group of atoms look like? Is that real? We think that that's real when we do our measurements of a deflection or a reaction, but is that actually what's happening? Is that what we see? Because as humans, we want to validate everything through sight. As biological entities, we want to validate everything through sight. So we want to see it. And what we're doing is we're predicting down using calculus, using algebra, and we're going down in really, really complicated ways, stacking assumption on top of assumption on top of assumption on experiments that were done in the 1800s or the early 1900s. And we make all of these assumptions and we scale them and scale them and scale them to the bubble experiment, which is the root of like particle accelerator stuff. And we make all of these assumptions that we know what's going on. And the stuff that we have works. This microphone works. The computers work. So it's not an or function. It's just a sharper peak to the quantum field. And most of it revolves around our understanding of light, which we don't understand because they can disappear from our radar and we can't. And that level of technology would be game-changing on the planet.
So what is it about their understanding that we don't have?
Well, they went down and measured it. And so our model of the atom is not 100% complete. And so Schrodinger's cat, the whole philosophy of Schrodinger's cat being there and not there at the same time is just not 100% right. And so I don't know if I want to get any deeper into it because I'm working on it. I'm working on bridging the gap. And the formula that I'm working on will explain the emission lines for all combinations of matter, period. So any combination of chemistry that you can think of, you should be able to predict and analyze the absorption and emission lines and unify gravity. You should be able to do all of it with one
mathematical formula,
mathematical understanding of how the atom works. Because
so you're working on a unifying theory.
Yeah. Well, we created.
You just said that like so flippantly, but is that what you're doing?
I'm trying.
You're trying.
I'm not a physicist.
Yeah.
I'm not a mathematician.
But
so it's difficult.
Then how are you going to get there?
Well, I'm hoping to get help.
Right.
But everything that we built in the 1900s was built on the Bohr model of the atom. And then they made some measurements and they're like, oh, okay, well, in order to hold all that stuff, which it ties all of our chemistry together in all of its glory, we know the chemistry works. So we're going to validate the Bohr model through chemistry, but then we are measuring electrons in a way that breaks the Bohr model. So then they forced it to work through the Schrodinger model, which is a probability, but there doesn't have to be a probability. It's complicated. And finding people who can even have these levels of conversations is difficult. Like my friends aren't astrophysicists. My friends aren't,
Well, there's a lot of astrophysicists, I'm sure, that are listening here.
Yeah.
And I would love for some of them to chime into the comments. Let me know what you make of any of this, and does this make a lick of sense? And when talking to people in the academic world, you have to be a little trepidatious. There is a sort of, I don't know, there's a dogma. There's a scientism when it comes to this stuff. And I don't want to be a complete, conspiracy theorist and saying, oh, there's like the gatekeeping and they keep shifting the goalposts. But we do see that, and we have seen that. We have evidence of that. Einstein's general theory of relativity wasn't proven until 50 years after his death or whatever, right? So like there has been shifting of the goalposts for political reasons, for just laziness, for, financial reasons, all of these reasons. So definitely you will get pushback
for sure
for any of this stuff. But I think one of the things that will subside that pushback, or at least subdue it, is proof.
Yeah.
And so what do you need to prove it? What do you need? Like right now, like if you're working on something, what is something that you're lacking that you need to prove it?
Support.
What kind of support?
Any support that I can get.
Yeah, like you're going to get support in the comments being like, go get them. But what type of support do you need?
I need specialists. I need people who are with an open mind, who are willing to look at this from a different perspective.
Look at what?
At science.
Like what science?
Say we don't understand gravity. We have this theory that there's dark matter in the universe and we're missing 80% of the gravity. We're missing 80% of the math. Sorry. How can we be missing 80% of the math?
But I'm sure there are physicists that do think about that, but they just don't have a solution.
But they can't unify it. They haven't unified it.
So what I'm saying is, like, what are you offering that helps them unify this? Because I think that's very important.
We have to understand gravity. Gravity is the key. And any physicist out there will say we can't find gravity.
So do you have an answer for that?
Yes. It's in the model of the atom.
It's in the model of the atom.
Yeah.
And that's something you don't want to get into.
That's something I don't want to get into.
Okay.
At this point.
Sure.
But I'm more than happy to open it up with someone who wants to do a deep dive and explore the physics and see where I'm wrong, because they didn't give it to me. I've extrapolated this through being in a room with people that are light years smarter than us.
Sure.
And we have evidence of it. Their flying saucer flew into a mountain. Mm-hmm. That's not mathematically possible.
To someone like Eric Weinstein or Eric Davis or even Hal Puthoff or any of these people, you would...
Yeah. If they had an open mind, absolutely.
Well, I'm sure they do have open minds. I mean, they're they've spoken about aliens and UFOs, so I'm sure they have a pretty open mind compared to most scholars.
The idea would be to figure it out together, right? To okay, let's take what I've learned or what I've seen, and let's take what we can see, and let's understand that there is more to this, because everyone who has studied this stuff, including the people that you mentioned, will say they do stuff we don't understand. And the only way to understand it, Einstein is famous for saying to do the same thing over and over again and expect a different result is a definition of insanity. So if we want to understand it, we have to be willing to do it differently.
Sure.
We have to be willing to accept that there is something that we're missing, right? And it's tied back to the assumptions from experiments that we did back in the 1800s.
Okay. Well, I'm going to follow up on this. I want to hear more about this because this is very interesting. And I think that, if you can provide some type of, nudge in the right direction for some people, and then that could potentially be very valuable, specifically in regards to, the implant, the technology that you're interacting with. I think that if you can extrapolate from that, you can probably figure out a lot of stuff that we don't understand. But again, leads me to believe that then why would they let you do that, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, I either expect nothing from you or expect you to disappear. I think those are the two options.
I hope it's not the latter.
Well, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I fear that if there is a possibility that you do get an answer to that, then there's a possibility that I won't hear about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, thoughts crossed your mind, I'm sure.
For sure it has.
And it doesn't frighten you?
It absolutely frightens, scares me to death. And I could be a test. I could be a test to see what our governments do. Are they going to take me and bury me somewhere and try to, how much sociology have they done in the last 80 years? They asked for time to do sociology. So how much did you do? What were you guys doing? Were you busy trying to reverse engineer our stuff so you could use it against us? Or were you actually doing what you said you were going to do, which is try and be good neighbors? And we hear that reflection all over the place. I mean, Dr. Stephen Greer he'll tell anyone who will listen that this is the frame that we need to take, right? And there's lots of starseeds and people trying to send that message out there. And I think it might be the smartest path. So am I a censor for that? And is that part of the greater good for us? I don't know. I mean, my feet don't touch the ground anymore. I'm swimming in waters that are so deep that like I could never hope to even see the bottom, let alone touch the bottom.
Yeah. Could you trick these entities?
Could I trick them?
Can they be tricked?
No. Can they be tricked? Absolutely.
How would you trick them?
I don't know if I would want to.
Why not?
Because I think there's enough noise. I think there's enough disdain. There's enough reasons for them to judge us and look down on us and think bad things about it. I think we earn that relative to each other.
Yeah, but I mean, it would be fun for them to be tricked. I would assume too. They would learn something. It would feed their algorithm.
They're very proud, so they would be more upset than we are about it.
Good. Yeah, that'd be interesting because obviously, there's the old adage of, was it Carl Sagan? What did he say? Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, right?
Yes.
And I mean, part of that evidence would be just having them appear, having them show up, having them say hi or whatever.
That day is coming.
Have you not tried to make that happen? Because I feel like that would be a shortcut to what you're trying to do right now with all the physics stuff, would just have them do it, appear and just go.
Yeah, they're not going to violate the agreement that they made because of any words that I could come up with.
You would have to trick yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They understand. They've collected all the data that I've been collecting. My brain has been collecting since the date of the abduction. So I can't conceptualize things that they don't have access to.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Anything else you want to talk about?
Not sure.
Anything about their culture?
What do you want to know?
I don't know. Do they eat?
Yes.
What do they eat?
They eat it's 3D printed and it is maximized to minimize the amount of food that they need to eat, because then it minimizes the amount of food they have to put out. And they don't get out of bed. They lay in bed all day. People reported anal probes. Anal probes is not some weird sexual thing. It's literally just how they handle waste. So they sit in a bed with a rectal tube so that they don't have to get out of bed to go to the bathroom. So just
no way.
Yeah.
They're just sloth-like.
Well, but they don't need to, because the robots do everything.
God, that sounds like, you ever see WALL-E?
No.
The Disney movie WALL-E? Well, he's this little robot, and, civilization now lives off-world because of the pollution, and they're all just like really overweight people on scooters, and they don't know how to walk anymore.
Yeah.
And like that kind of feels like that's what that would be.
Yeah. So they manage their weight through food, and they manage their weight through the AI. Like, imagine if the computer's feeding you, it'd be like, oh, you've had a little bit extra this week.
Sounds terrible.
So I'm going to cut your food, but you're not going to feel hungry, because the food combination I'm going to give you is going to make sure that your brain doesn't send those signals.
Okay. So they're in bed all day. They got a tube up their butt, giving them the perfect amount of.
Yeah. But their physical body's in bed, but they're not in bed. They live in a virtual space. They live in this beautiful virtual environment where anything can exist. They could be in a field full of flowers.
So it's the Matrix.
They could be in, in Star Wars, they have the council where everybody flies into the center. They spend a lot of time there debating, arguing, coming up with the best idea, and flooring things. They have a great big fork of logic that's in this virtual space where the strongest idea rises to the top. So they'll think of when they decided to come here, they created this plan and then they executed on it. And so we are a big portion of that logic fork. And if you're in I would love to build this. If somebody has got the coding and the software production capabilities to realize this, it's a structured way to make arguments like the positions or the space that we have on X, but the result of which goes to this great big fork of logic, which then gets furthered as people have arguments. So we would argue whether cats or dogs are better. Okay, when we use this arbitrary argument because everybody's used it for a century. And dogs are better because, and then we would have that conversation and we would leave. And then the next time you said something about cats and dogs, you'd come back, and it's now the argument is objectively moved to here. And you could quickly
fluctuates.
You could quickly look at all of the logic points and see why, and then agree or disagree with them. And then once everybody's agreed with them, then it gets solidified, and that becomes a new information node. And so they use that like we use Wikipedia
or AI
to validate and to create spaces to save time, to make the AI more efficient. It doesn't have to go and validate. Like if I ask Grok, what's the size of an atom or whatever, it'll go through 700 pages trying to revalidate cross-reference. They don't have to do that. They know that size is
objective.
It's now been objective. Every single person has agreed by looking at that point,
right,
and accepted that position as being valid. The computer has accepted it's been valid. It has now been validated. There's no point to talk about that anymore. And they have this huge fork of logic that is going into the universe learning. And so they just want to learn as much as they can and do the hard things. Let's floor a really difficult conversation where it's going to get everybody upset. Let's just drop it right in the middle, and we'll just beat the hell out of it until we come up with an objective solution.
That's a cool model. I mean, it's optimal. It's like an optimized model, but it also, they seem so soulless to me. The idea of, your body's in bed and you're just in this virtual optimization simulation, collecting data, eating things for nutrients only. And do you know what I mean? And like just messing with people. I don't know. It sounds like hell. It doesn't sound great to me. Like if that's where we're headed, I'm not about it.
Well, they're different than us. Obviously, they evolved on a planet with different combinations of chemistry, different combinations of life, all kinds of
different
stuff.
Challenges. Yeah.
Our food, going back to food and them being soulless and not enjoying food is actually relatively rare. They think, and I happen to agree with them, in the universe, like if you look at a peach has fought for its survival. And the way that it survived was by being delicious. So the peaches, from the peach's frame, the peach optimized being delicious. So
for humans.
It would get eaten for whatever animal's going to eat it.
Yeah.
So that it would eat it and plant its seeds somewhere else so that it could flourish. And so our food literally has competed to be delicious. An alligator wouldn't say the same thing. An alligator doesn't eat food based on whether or not it's delicious. So for them, food is just a method to a means. Their world is way more exciting, diverse than ours, because it literally can be tuned by the user to be whatever they want it to be. And as far as soulless, again, their philosophy is extremely different than ours. Their upbringing was different than ours. They're more like an alligator. They believe you got to win. If you're a winner, they'll respect you till the last breath. But if you're a loser, they're not interested in you. They don't think that you have space to be alive. It's a different world. It's not this independent idea. It's tied to this whole network of logic and understanding.
So they don't have feelings.
But it makes sense to them. They do have feelings, but they're different. They come in a different ratio. They activate differently in their brain than we do. When we get upset,
like if I lost whatever it was, and then I was shunned from society, that would hurt my feelings. They don't have that same.
They do, but too bad. Figure out a way to win. But they have a rule of inclusion, so you would never be excluded. Okay, so you would still get all of the things that you need to be a valued member of society, but you're just not going to get desire, right? Because you don't deserve it, because you're a loser. And that's how their world works.
Yeah, it sounds like a tough love.
But it works, and it works for them. And to them, the way that we do it is the way you're feeling right now. And I used to struggle with that for a long time too, until I accepted the frame and. We do it this way, and they do it that way.
Yeah.
And that's okay. We don't have to agree.
Right.
Right?
That's interesting. Yeah, I really haven't thought about it like that. We anthropomorphize so many things, and it is interesting to think about a different culture, at least as a thought experiment. and how they would operate if not like us. And it's really difficult. So, providing that perspective is quite valuable, even as a thought experiment, to be like, oh, yeah, I suppose if you were constantly min-maxing your existence, all of that would seem normal to you, where it would seem very unfamiliar to us, but it would also provide them with a faster road to high-tech discovery or a faster road to sort of survival, really.
Yeah.
And so...
Well, they never had ice ages.
So they're here.
So they never got reset.
They're living in ships. They're living in the water. They're living underground or whatever.
Yeah.
How many of them?
Here, there's just a few doing work. Like we send people off to work on oil rigs, or we send people off to work isolated environments, and they're here and they're isolated. And the people that are here doing the work of data collection of Earth, it's kind of a crappy job because, there's no one to talk to, right? So there's a 35-minute delay in, imagine if your X account or your social account was delayed by an hour and a half. Every post you made, everything you saw was an hour and a half old. Well, to us, that doesn't seem like that much. But we live in a virtual space and everything is instantaneous for your whole life. That's a big deal. And so they go through that, that's a crappy environment for them, having an hour-long delay on your X post. So they live a pretty high-value life because that's pretty marginal to me and you.
What do you mean, what delay? Between them and whom?
Between them and their people at Jupiter.
In Jupiter?
Or sorry, Saturn.
Saturn. Is it Saturn or Jupiter?
I'm not sure. I don't know for sure.
Okay.
But it's Jupiter.
Because that's where the water is?
Not water.
Hydrogen.
Hydrogen. It's the largest volume of hydrogen in a solar system.
And how many of them are there?
100,000.
100,000.
Which is the mathematical number that optimizes society.
Sustainable society.
They have a metric where if they want to agree on a node in their logic tree, or if they want to change a hard line, or if they want to do something as a collective, which we can't even fathom this, but every single person has to agree. Everyone.
Before it moves forward.
Before something
changes. That would be chaos here.
Right? But it's so objective where they're from because they've collected all of the data.
Yeah.
So if me and you are arguing and you have a personal position, I can identify that personal position and I can say, yeah, but that's a personal position for you. And you can see how objectively this is better for the collective.
Right.
And you would say yes, and it would be able to separate that.
So they're autistic is what you're saying. They're like...
Just different.
No, but that's kind of like neurodivergency in a nutshell, where they're able to separate emotion from logic. They're able to, and that doesn't mean they don't feel, because as we know, even people who are neurodivergent feel the same things we do. They just don't, they're just able to sort of separate themselves from those feelings and sometimes miss those feelings entirely due to, the information.
Yeah. Well, they have the almost identical, they have almost identical overlap to us emotionally, which they think, and I agree with them. I'm not even close to as smart as they are, but it's the evolutionary result of being conscious is these emotions, which guide us to have a society that works. And so if you want to have a society that works, you have to have empathy. You have to have compassion. You have to have toughness and grit, and you have to have all of those things. They just express them with different weights than we do. Their brain operates different than ours does. When we get angry, I know sometimes I'll get angry and I'll be mad for 20 minutes. If I really get set off, and I think that's like a scientific number. If you get really mad, go for a walk, you'll calm down, and then now you can think again, right? And there's a metric of the more emotional you are, the dumber you get, right? And they're inversely proportional. For them, they can get mad like from 0 to 60, like in a snap, and then 30 seconds later, they're not mad anymore. So they have this incredible control over not control, but their ability to react to emotions doesn't carry the same wavelength. And because of that, they're willing to go through them differently than we are. So they have no problem triggering you to set you off. Whereas we really, if you look at our society, we really try not to do that.
Yeah.
I try not to just go into Tim Hortons and really piss off the guy behind me because he'll clock me.
Yeah.
Right? For them, they'll do it just to gaslight each other because they have that space, because they can.
Wow. What's another interesting quirk about their culture or their species?
They have perfected their another interesting thing.
What were you gonna say?
I don't want to say it.
Say it. Well, just say it.
I don't want to disrespect them.
Well, come on. If they got something to say, they can come say it for themselves. Just use a bit of your own sovereignty here.
Yeah.
What were you gonna say?
They have perfected their DNA.
Oh.
So they long time ago, every single person agreed that they were going to use one iteration of DNA. So imagine our greatest person is, I don't know, I don't really want to use anyone who's alive. Our greatest person is Aristotle.
Sure.
Okay. And we're going to take Aristotle's DNA and we're going to make everyone Aristotle.
Whoa.
And then we're going to let those people rise to the top. And then we're going to take Aristotle's peak and we're going to iterate it. And then we're going to take that peak and we're going to iterate it. And we're going to take that peak and we're going to iterate it until they hit a ceiling where they started to see noise happen. So they started to see stuff change. And that's, they capped it and they just keep running the same cycle over and over and over again. So they have 100,000 people. Someone grows old and dies. They make a new one and they shove it in the system.
So constantly optimizing everything.
Everything is constantly optimized.
Are they trying to...
And it saves them a whole bunch of work because the computer has got a model. Like if, let's say you needed a heart replacement. Okay. I'd have to take a sample of your DNA and figure out what your heart should look like. But if I clone you, now I can just pop one off the shelf and shove a new heart in. I already have that done.
Right.
Okay. So now that work's been eliminated.
Right.
If I eliminate
your body's not going to fight it anymore. And
if I eliminate work, I now have more time to play and have arguments and be desirable and have fun and do all of the things that make life worth living. And so they spend the majority of their time just having fun.
And their fun is gathering information.
And that's work.
That's work.
That's work. That's a job. That's someone is here doing that job.
Yeah, but like they're coming up with new ideas and stuff. They like that. They
love that.
Yeah.
In the
learning
same way,
new things. They love.
In the same way that if we were out for dinner and they made a new scientific discovery, we would then floor that and we would have that conversation about that. And that would become valuable conversation for us to have. We didn't have to go through any of the work to get it.
Right.
But now we're enjoying the fruits of that labor. Right? Because it makes our conversation more stimulating. It makes the
with new questions
more interesting, right? It's
new questions,
philosophy, new stuff to crunch, new positions to take.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah, you can ask new questions. I always say a new question is more valuable than anything else. Like once you get an answer, the answer, is the wanting of an answer is an illusion. A lot of people don't understand that, but when you get an answer, immediately the answer doesn't matter. Immediately. Mm-hmm. All that matters is the new question that the answer brought. So the answer is valuable because it provides you with the ability to ask a new question. And so, but all we can do is assume we have answers and then ask questions based on those assumptions.
Yeah.
Because we don't have the objective truths yet about a lot of things. And so it becomes difficult for us to navigate that. But that is interesting. Is there an end game? Do they want to reach an apotheosis, a critical mass of information? Is that what they're trying to do? Are they trying to become God? Are they trying to have all knowledge? Are they trying to make the universe sentient? Like, what is their end goal here?
I have no idea. I could hypothesize. I could guess, but I know that they love information and they want to learn and they want to optimize life, and every reason that they have to optimize is to create desire and to create desire at its root, so that the conversations are desirable, so that the emotions are desirable, so that every aspect of my life, desire has been maximized, so that I live the fullest life. Because time is the only resource you cannot make more of. You can make more of anything else, but you cannot make more of time. So the time that you're here, you need to spend that maximizing the quality of life. And so I think they drive to maximize that quality of life.
The quality of virtual life.
Of their version
of life, yeah, because their body's sitting in a bed.
The way that they all agree is the highest version of, right? Like they've all agreed. So what they're doing.
That's a crazy thing to agree on.
Right? But if we say, oh, that's weird, they're like, you're weird. You know what I mean?
Dude, you're in a bed with a tube. Like, that's weird.
Yeah, but they don't feel it. It's not like they think about it. It's something that just disappears. And their physical body, that's the Matrix. That is the argument of the Matrix of, at one point there was, the guy who sold out Neo in the first Matrix, who told the agents, and the exchange was, you see him at dinner, and the exchange was, put me back in the pod, erase my memory. I don't want to know anything. I just want to be rich, and I want to have fun, and I want to live in the Matrix. Like I can understand wanting to do that rather than living in a polluted, festered existence. So I do get it. Yeah. They have a really interesting flex, and I haven't seen it. I've only heard about it, but someone will brag that they forgot to eat, and the computer had to remind them to eat food because they were having so much fun that for like 3 days I forgot to eat food because they're living life to the maximum. So it's like a peacock, right? Like, I'm so desirable, I'm having so much fun that I forgot to eat, and it's an interesting. They do lots of that.
That happens to me.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. That's crazy. This is really interesting, I got to say, Shawn. This is, part of me is incredibly dubious, and naturally so. It's not something that I can willingly overcome, even though I want to, because of the lack of experience, firsthand experience. And I think that everybody, and that's the whole point of this channel, really, is we all live with that guarded filter to this type of information. We all have that innately, and that is a survival thing, and it is a thing that's important.
Of course.
But I think the practice of suspension of disbelief or belief is equally as important, because it provides temporary answers so that we may ask new questions temporarily and then hypothesize on these new things. And I think that that's really valuable in order to come up with creative solutions to, problems that we're facing. And so, I think it's really interesting. And I want to thank you for opening up. This is definitely probably not easy to talk about. You're someone who clearly has a very, you're very sharp. You strike me as someone who has his shit together, so to speak. And when I met you, Contact, I had that feeling. And that's what intrigued me about this, is that I get a lot of people who hit me up with what seems like incoherent ramblings of their ongoing, alien communication. A lot. And it's hard for me to separate the wheat from the chaff as someone who's open-minded, because I don't know. I don't want to be judging, but I also don't want to amplify someone's potential psychosis. Do you understand?
Makes sense.
Because it's that's a line that's really difficult, and it's a lot of responsibility. But I do feel like you're being genuine, and I do feel like you've had an experience, and the answers that you've provided, I mean, they're very stimulating and very fun to think about, and it's given me a lot to think about. And so I just want to thank you for opening up.
You're welcome.
And thank you for participating on this show and being a part of this little universe that we're creating here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you perhaps guide my audience to where they can find out more about your work, or what it is you're doing, or how they can follow your journey?
Yeah, absolutely. So I wrote a book just so that I could get all my thoughts down in a linear path. And that's available on Amazon. It's called MindHacked, and it's by Shawn Newbauer. And I have a YouTube channel, which is called Maximal Truth. And I dive into some of this stuff, trying to explain my theories in more detail, asking questions, and challenging the mainstream narrative. I get it. My whole philosophy, my whole frame is different than ufology. I take a different approach. I wasn't a believer. I'm not a researcher. I don't know most of the lore. I only started learning because I had to, because I needed to figure out what was happening to me. And so I can 100% relate to you being a skeptic or challenging ideas and wanting proof and wanting to see what's going on. We need to take an objective frame on this whole thing. And so if people want to check it out, they can head to those two sites.
I'll leave the links below. Shawn Newbauer, it was a pleasure talking to you. I look forward to hanging out and talking some more.
Cheers.
Thanks.
Thank you.